Hi, everybody. Dr. Lena coming to you from Buenos Aires. I've got another week here. Are you enjoying the trip? Okay. People think I'm on holiday, but I'm actually working, but that's another story. Okay. Because I'm in a shared environment, I have to do this outside. So I hope there's not too much background noise. So I'll just have to talk louder and louder. The other thing is I have to put the cards down the side, so you'll just have to trust me about how the cards come out. There is, of course, a massive amount of things to talk about. So I think first, I'm not going to read on it, but I do want to talk about it. The protest in Congress of approximately 400 US Jews, including 25 rabbis, calling for a ceasefire. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene came out today and said it was an insurrection. No, it wasn't, Marjorie. They weren't trying to take over the government. They weren't. They weren't attacking people. They weren't threatening members of Congress. No, not an insurrection. It's a protest bed. They obviously don't know the difference. But one of the signs that stood out to me was our blood is all the same colour. And I think that's a really important human premise that we should all keep in mind at all times, but also in relation to racial issues and everything else. Have you noticed how little coverage there's been on the protest? Virtually nothing. Okay, so in other news, Sidney Powell has pleaded guilty. Well, she should, because she is. And so that's, join the dots. Oh, hold on, my notes are flying away. Oh, these conditions remind me, do you remember, long-term intrepid viewers, when I was in Spain with Dave from Moonrise and it was freezing cold and we're huddled in blankets? Did you remember? It's like that. Okay, Sidney Powell. Now, she was one of the 18 defendants in this case. Someone had to go first with the plea deal. So in return for not going to jail, she will have to testify at the other trials, So let's have a look how that's going to impact. Personally, I think she is as mad as a meat axe, But she willfully went on Fox and everywhere else and rampaged and frothed at the mouth about the stolen election when she knew it wasn't. She blamed Dominion, who are suing her. Look, if nothing else, she's going to end up. Oh, what fell out? Oh my God, the wedding card. She's going to need that. I'm going to put that down because I think it's sort of got something to say, but I can't imagine what. Yeah, so let's look now at Sidney Powell, and I'm interested how this will impact the other defendants. Okay, Sidney Powell pleading guilty. Oh, that was the Knight of Pentacles. The cards are jumping. I don't think it's the wind. I think they're just onto it. Knight of Pentacles. Oh, they always do it for Trump, don't they? They do it for this maniac. Okay, this is interesting. So I thought, why the wedding card? Forget actual weddings. This is about pacts and contracts and agreements. And she had one with the death card. It's actually not going to be good for her. But Okay. She went to bat with the Knight of Pentacles. Who was that? I'm glad you asked. It was the Yeti as the Emperor. He promised money to all of them. Remember, back in the day, said, just say it, just say it. If there's any legal shit down the road, I'll pay your bills. Who would believe this creature? No. So she got into bed thinking she would get money from it. The core of it, of course, was the theft of the election. Right. But the death card, the king has been trampled. You get the vibe now, don't you? He's lost a great deal of oomph in these last few months. I mean, I don't think there's enough Adderall in the world to stop him losing energy, because he always comes from a position of winning, and he'd only have to look in his shaving mirror to look at a loser, right? So this must be really playing with his narcissistic hemorrhoid of a brain. Okay, but Pacific Power and the others, because that was the question. This is the sun setting on this. You're not going to convince that 20-25% of hardcore magaphiles, but middle of the road GOP aren't going to be impressed with the revelations that come out. They also can't be impressed with what's going on in Congress. Oh my God. Speaker, what speaker? So, Smelly Jocks Jim Jordan isn't going for a third round because he just keeps losing votes. God. Also, what's been happening with that is the Republican from, I think she's from Indiana, Marionette Miller Meeks, received death threats for not voting for this man. Others, other wives, hate that term, don't you? Other wives of congressmen got threatening messages. He tried to strong arm everyone, and it's backfired. It's backfired completely. But before I get on to McHenry, I want to have a look at Judge Cannon, the loose cannon, Aileen Cannon, in charge of this huge case with the documents. The woman has only overseen 4 trials, and they're not big trials in her CV. A total of 14 days in court prior to this case. Now, I'm sorry, again, this is a systemic issue. You qualify as a lawyer, and then you get experience, and then you become a judge, very rarefied atmosphere. But surely there's some sort of criteria that you have to serve on the bench for X years or X number of cases before you go in the carousel for the biggest case in modern history. It's a systemic problem. She should not have even been a candidate. So I don't even blame her per se for them letting a badly equipped judge go forward. So let's have a quick look. Oh, I digress again. 2 of her 4 trials have come undone. One had the opinion reversed. In another, she forgot to put guilty or not guilty on the form sent to jurors to fill out. This is kindergarten stuff. This is Sesame Street legal stuff. And in another, she forgot to swear in the jury. Now, if someone's inexperienced, they're promoted up out of their depth. Wouldn't you have senior judges on speed dial to absolutely overlook every single thing you're doing so you don't look like a complete wreck? I would have. wouldn't you? You know, but no. So let's have a look at Eileen Cannon. Eileen Cannon. I mean, at what point do they say you're not up to it, love? Is there a point? Do they do that? Incompetence, sheer incompetence. Eileen Cannon. Well, you know what? I can't believe this. I think maybe she'll screw up so badly, they'll have to do something. Her first card, the Four of Pentacles, she's hanging on for dear life, right? She's really clinging on to her position. She should actually just recuse herself and save herself further embarrassment. But no, ego the size of Manhattan, she won't. She's holding on. But other senior legal people are looking at her rulings, are shocked and horrified. You only have to watch, the Midas touch and other things. Led Kirshner, who are looking at her, they're going to come to a point where they're going to have to make a decision in the best interests of justice. Remember justice. And I think the way she's going with so many actual obvious boo-boos, it could be sayonara for Eileen Cannon. But we have no timelines in tarot. This might be months into the trial. It's hard to say. But didn't you love the other news? Trump's lawyers. Oh my goodness. The lawyer submitting an appeal. Remember, Judge Chukin has done a little wishy-washy marshmallow mini gag. I mean, it wouldn't stop a 4-year-old, so it's not going to stop the Yeti. Pathetically weak gag order, in my view. Anyway, of course they appealed it, and he got the letter back saying, you're not eligible to practice law at this level, in this state, in this courtroom. Actually, hadn't paid up his membership of the relevant bar association. Can you believe it? Well, of course you do. And there was another one, jumping back to the Jack Smith case, where a lawyer, Woodward, was about to cross-examine employee 4, which is that guy Walter Maute, or whatever his name is. And the judge said, no, you can't, because you were his lawyer before he threw you to the curb and took a real one. So you can't do it. So these lawyers, Trump's left now with the bottom of the parrot cage of attorneys in the US. I could go on. All right, we're going to look at McHenry now. Even Jordan himself is backing the idea of keeping McHenry in as Speaker pro tempore, fluent in Latin. But that's led to a thing where Republicans now are starting in Congress to organize to oppose McHenry. I mean, that would be too sensible for them, wouldn't it? Be way too sensible. And besides that, it might solve the immediate crisis, at least for 30 days or 3 months or whatever. But no, they're fighting it tooth and nail. So will McHenry get to keep the Speaker's gavel? McHenry. Apparently he's a crypto fiend, but he did acknowledge the election wasn't stolen. So, you know, got to give him some credit for something, I suppose. So will McHenry stay on? Look, I'm going to stick my neck out and say yes. Look, here's the cutting through the BS card. Okay. When all's said and done, they've got to come up with something. And so this push, it's an ace, so it gives it a big push. So not without a fight, no. Oh, they're so toxic, these people. So there will be one more hold up, at least one more, possibly infinite. Who knows how badly behaved they are. He has got the hangman, but that's followed by the chariot and moving to safer waters. So when I look at these together, after a delay, he will move forward and steer them into, it won't be calm waters exactly because they can't agree with each other. They can't agree. In fact, a Republican congressman from somewhere today said they wouldn't vote on Jesus, Mary, and Joseph in there. He came out exhausted, disgusted. Well, 5 years too late, love. However, better than nothing. Okay. Now, I've been asked by a viewer to look into the Dominionists. Now, this sort of connects with the last point. Who's opposing McHenry? Well, those who are bought and paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Heritage Action is the political wing of the Heritage Foundation. Now, ironically, Jim Jordan is part of their club, and so now he's going to be targeted in some bizarre way. But the question was about the Dominionists. So they're behind a lot of the organised groups who are taking over school boards. You know, they're the Christian fundamentalists who don't want their children to receive an education. That would be way too dangerous. And God made the world in 6 days. And there's no such thing as dinosaurs, and there's no such thing as geology, and there's no such thing as a fact. So fundamentalists are what are wrong with the world generally. When you scratch the surface on any international issue, there it is, fundamentalism. Okay. So let's have a look at the Dominionists. It's been a very clever and effective tactic, just quietly taking, not so quietly, taking over school boards. Often families have both working parents. I can't get to the meeting tonight, so no. And then you blink and you find out your school's been taken over by Old Testament nutcases. So let's have a look at the Dominionists and their power going forward. Okay. Wow, wands. 5 cards, 5 wands. Now, what are wands about? Let's just step back here. They're about identity and ego and power and strength, if you want to call it that. But here's the thing. King and Queen of Wands. 78 cards, and the King and Queen come up side by side. So this to me is speaking of, they're taking 2 tacks here. The women appealing to women, maybe the men appealing to men. You know, they have a very gendered universe. But at the end of the day, It's about the power. We then have, this is the strategy. This hasn't come from nowhere. It's been a long-term, well-funded strategy. Night ones, they're not going to stop. Unless someone stops them, they are not going to stop. They believe they're the chosen ones. They're doing God's work. They're totally motivated. So I'm sorry about that, but for at least the short term, meaning the next year or so, they're going to wield the big stick. So it's up to every thinking, decent, caring parent and grandparent or uncle and auntie or cousins of to stand up to these people, because they're just unwavering. All right, my beloved ones, I have to go off into the day in downtown Buenos Aires. And there's a lovely bit of graffiti behind me that says in Spanish, "You are the light of the world." I'll leave that with you. I love that. Bye for now.